At the time, I was producing it because I was the only one who knew what it was I wanted. If I could have afforded a big time producer, and when you're on tour, musically, you're pretty much playing the same thing every night. And like I was saying before, if there's no new goals musically, I was on a date with a really gorgeous girl I was trying to impress. And it was so friggin' hot that there was this. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what you learn. What matters is you have any kind of goal. It could be anything at all.
First of all, thanks again for joining us with Score today. You've
Thank
recently
you.
released Tokyo Jukebox 3, a truly fantastic album, and we've also reviewed it. Tell us about the album and how you ended up recording it.
It's the third one in my Tokyo Jukebox series, and it's basically just me playing my favorite songs, but destroying them, destroying the original versions, and kind of making them sound like they would be on any of my other albums. And it's basically that's the whole concept right there. But this time, I was supposed to play the Tokyo Marathon in 2020, and I've been playing the opening ceremony there every year for 4 years. And so when I got the offer to do it in 2020, the record company said, "Well, you've been playing pretty much the same songs every year." And I always play like very famous Japanese songs from my other records, the other jukebox records. They said, "Well, why don't you come up with a new song or a couple new songs? And if we start to like the direction, we can go for a whole new Tokyo Jukebox album. And if we're even luckier, we can get it into the Olympics somehow." This was all obviously before COVID happened. So I got really excited about that and started listing up all the songs I wanted to do. And I started working on it, I'd say like in December of 2019. And it was just about finished when COVID started. So everything got pushed around and delayed and all that. But that gave me more time to live with the stuff. And I spent a lot of that early COVID time working in the studio and remaking the whole album and just polishing all the little edges on it. So for my recording purposes, it was really kind of almost ideal.
All right, that's great to hear. First of all, Marty, I'm a big fan of yours. And among all my guitar heroes, I think you are the one who started the latest. So, but you got good very fast. So can you take us through your practice routine in your formative years, like how you started, how you started playing, and how you became so good so quickly?
I guess I did start kind of late because most kids start when they're 7 or 8, right? And
yeah.
I was 13, almost 14 when I started. But I never really had a routine of practice. Always just had goals. Even now it's the same. When I first started, I could barely play, but I put together a little band and we had a show to do, so I had to learn all the songs for the show. So I wasn't spending time learning other things, had nothing to do with the songs. I just learned exactly what I needed to learn and worked on those things. And I didn't really work on anything else. So the show would happen and I would say, okay, so that's the way to practice. You just have a particular goal and you work on those things. And I think a lot of, confusion happens when you don't have goals. Then you think, well, what am I supposed to work on now? What's going to make me better? It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what you learn. What matters is you have any kind of goal. It could be anything at all. Could be playing in front of your family. Could be working for recording a demo. Could be rehearsing for an audition. Could be rehearsing for a show. Any little goal. You just have to have millions of those and do them all the time. And that's your practice routine. It's not like, well, 1 hour on scales, 1 hour on arpeggios, 1 hour on this and that. Then those really don't have much to do with actual goals, I don't think. So at least for me, it was always about having a goal. So the times when I don't have a goal, I'm just not even playing guitar because there's not really anything to work on. There's nothing, no purpose. So, but I'm constantly creating purposes to work on things. So that's how it works for me, but maybe it's different for other people.
Okay, that's awesome. So according to you, artists should spend more time working on goals rather than just sitting and doing 1 hour of alternate picking practice or 1 hour sweep picking practice and stuff like that. That's great. That's very insightful.
I mean, that's a very realistic way to think about it, I would assume, because your final goal is what? Your final goal is you want to play for people. And a lot of young guitarists get frustrated because they see people playing big shows and playing for people, and they're like, this guy's no good, he can't play. I know guys in their basement who can play better than that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
There's always guys like that.
Yeah.
And that should be like a light bulb in your head. What really matters is the final goal of playing music and making people feel good with your music. The goal is not necessarily to be someone who can play everything in the world and sit in their room playing it. Of course, now is a hard time to play for a lot of people, but now would be a great time to prepare for later. And do all and think of the things that you want to do and work on those things. So I think it's important to notice that there are people who are playing in front of people. They're not necessarily good at every single thing, myself included. There's things I'm terrible at. I would never want to play those things in front of people. So I keep those things hidden, you know? So, but yeah, I think that the key to playing in front of people, that's our major goal. That's why we want to do this. So got to keep those goals in mind.
That's awesome. So insightful. Thank you so much for that.
Interesting. Yeah. A lot of people might not know that you were fluent in Japanese before you moved to Japan. Tell us how that came to be.
Yeah, it was just a hobby, really. When you're on the road, there's so much travel time, and I was enjoying learning a little bit of Japanese here and there, and so I started to get more serious. And in all the travel time and all the waiting time, you know, I'd be studying my kanji and listening to Japanese conversation tapes and watching Japanese programs. And so I didn't really want to waste a lot of that downtime. And when you're on tour, musically, you're pretty much playing the same thing every night. And like I was saying before, if there's no new goals musically, you just don't even pick up a guitar. So I'm thinking, what else am I going to do? So I was enjoying Japanese as a hobby. And, you know, in the tour bus, in the airplane, backstage, in the hotel room, anytime there's free time, you know, everybody has hobbies. People like to read books or play video games or go shopping or whatever. I was always into trying to learn Japanese. I don't know why. I didn't have any idea that I would ever move here. It was just for fun.
Okay. And why Japan?
Who knows? You know, it could have just as well been India, because I think it has a lot to do with music. And when I was in my late teens, I was discovering music from other countries, mostly Japan and China and India. And I started to learn a lot about rhythmic subdivisions from Indian music because it's so unique. You know, most countries, their traditional music is pretty much 4/4 a lot of the time. But in India, it just seems there's so many different variations on rhythms and rhythms of melodies that when I was a teenager, that really stuck to me. So I absorbed some of that, and I really enjoyed that, and then really enjoyed Chinese instruments and Japanese instruments. So I think it could have just as easily been China or Japan that drove me to move there. But I think when I started to get into Japanese pop music, it really kind of forced me to go into Japan.
Okay, that's awesome. Like I've always noticed with your playing, you've always fused like some Eastern sounding tunes into your playing. Like the thing that comes to my mind first of all is the lead of Holy Wars, the acoustic part, not the clean part.
Uh,
That one. So now coming to that, coming to India and your love for India and Indian music, we've also heard that you're a big fan of spicy food. Now you know that
yes.
Indians love spicy foods. How did you affair with spicy food stuff?
Yeah, that I don't know how that happened, but I've been really searching for the hottest food ever. And not with there's some like maniacs on YouTube that just go way, the contests, not that level. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I can't really get that high, but um, every different country has different kinds of spicy foods.
Mhm.
Japan, not so much. But I really love it. When I went to India, we were only there for like 3 days or so I didn't really get to try too many different things. But what I had was so incredibly delicious, and this kind of, it's like what I had anyway was very, very spicy, but it wasn't like competition kind of kill yourself spicy, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And I just think it's fascinating, and it's a good conversation starter. You know what I mean? When you're with a bunch of people and you're having a dinner together and you don't know anybody, you can just start bringing up, hey, do you like something really spicy? Try this. And somebody can't take it and they go crazy, and it's funny to watch. But I love it. And I was very impressed. Indian food, one time I was in an Indian restaurant, and I was just used to going to restaurants and saying, make it spicy, and they never do. This was in LA. They never make it. I say, give me the hottest thing on your menu and make it extra spicy, and it's still like not spicy at all. So I went to this one Indian place, and I said that to them, and they're like, who does this guy think he is? We'll show him what spicy is. I was on a date. I was on a date with a really gorgeous girl I was trying to impress, and it was so friggin' hot that there was this pitcher of ice water. I couldn't stop drinking the ice water, and I was like shivering because I was so cold from the ice water, and I could tell that those guys in the restaurant were laughing at me like, you shouldn't have asked us to make it so spicy. I learned my lesson, but I really dig it. But there are people in India who don't also like spicy food, correct?
Myself
Not
included. I'm not a huge fan of spicy food.
Really?
I can't take it. I can't take too much. I start sweating, and I start becoming red.
Most people, it's very normal, right?
Yeah. I think Prakash loves it. He's a South Indian. So
Yeah, so it's a very regional thing. So it depends on states. And inside each of these states, there are spicy versions and non-spicy versions of each food. So we have...
It's not like everybody's totally used to it. It's just like anywhere else where some people do, some people don't.
Yes, it's...
I would say compared to a European palate, it's generally spicier. But
of course,
everybody
yes.
doesn't love spice as it's propagated in the media. There are some people like me who can't take too much.
I'll remember that if we get together and have dinner in India sometime.
Yeah. I'll make sure I order the spicy food for you, and I'll ask the chef to cook something less spicy for myself.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that we host, and we make sure that we get you the same experience again. Make you drink.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so is there a Japanese scale which you consider essential learning for any new budding metal guitarist?
Japanese
Scale?
Any Japanese scale they can incorporate in their metal playing, which will go well with aggressive music.
I never thought in terms of scales and this scale and that other scale. If you think that way, it's probably going to sound kind of funny in music. It really does. If you just take a scale that's indigenous to some country's kind of music and put it in like heavy metal or heavy rock, it's probably going to stand out in a bad way. So I think I might have fooled a lot of people into thinking that I know scales and stuff. sometimes it only takes one little melody, 1 second of a melody to make people think, oh, it sounds so incredibly Japanese. If you do a
Yes.
long passage of like a scale going in and up and down, it's just going to sound kind of cheesy, really. So but what I can say is to just learn music that you like from other countries. If you don't like it, there's no reason to learn it. But if you hear something that's interesting to you from another country's music, you should focus on that. Just yesterday, I was listening to Piazzolla from Argentina, and I've always been a big fan of his music, but I found this one passage in it was so cool that I had to learn it. I had to learn what was cool about it, because that one little passage attracted me. So I learned that passage and I'm like, oh, that's cool. So maybe I'll kind of, stick that type of thing in my own music someday. So you can't just say this one scale fits in heavy metal music. I'm sure a lot of guitar teachers and people like that do that because it's an easy way to, say something to kids. But in reality, if the music means something to you, you're going to take something from it and actually let it sink into your body rather than just saying, well, this scale goes here. And that's probably a pretty valuable piece of advice, maybe.
No, definitely.
Definitely, yes.
Definitely. So now I'm going to ask, so far we've been asking general questions. I'm going to ask a question which is very personal to me. So I'm a big fan of all your work, solo stuff, Cacophony, obviously Megadeth, all the stuff you've done in Japan. But my favorite song of yours till date is Forbidden City of the Dragon's Kiss record. So can you tell us how you came up with this song, how you composed that, and how there's so many layers to it, so detailed. Can you please tell us the story of that song?
Okay. That's a long time ago, man.
Yeah. 88.
That was like when I was in my late teens. I lived in Hawaii and I had a band there, and we would play shows, and part of Forbidden City was in one of our songs. So I always had this theme, it's the main theme at the beginning. So I've always been a big fan of music that has the same theme, but in many interpretations. And that's kind of like movie music and even television music. You'll hear the same theme played sadly, played happily, played darkly, played brightly, played in different kind of motifs. And it really plays with your emotions, because by the time you're through 5, 6, 7 minutes of the music, you've invested yourself in the melody as a listener. So by the time you get to the end, it's like a climax because you're already used to the melody and now you're hearing it in the most exciting form. So it started off with the basic melody, and I haven't heard the song in a long time. And even when we play it live, we only play parts of it as a medley. But it was basically, I really liked the theme, and I remember making it very challenging for the drummer, Dean Castronovo, to play it. Back then there was no Pro Tools, so he had to play the whole thing at once. And I remember one thing, he played it perfectly except for one little spot. And I'm like, dude, I hate to break this to you, but we need to get this one little spot. And he was such a trooper about it. He was very cool. He's like, okay, man, I know I can do it again. I know I can do it again. Nowadays, we would have just fixed that one spot. But at that time, I was trying to really make drums important in heavy music, because at that time, drums were very cliche. Heavy metal drums, they all were very cliche. And when I met Dean Castronovo, I knew he was very capable of doing more things and really making a exciting statement. So I wrote a lot of that around interesting drum parts. And when you write an interesting drum part, it makes it easy to come up with guitar parts. So it's very important. Or if you have a great drummer like Dean and you just listen to what he does, unusual guitar parts will come out of your head. And so I would assume that in India, there's a lot of people with doing very, very interesting rhythmic things. And when I hear those things, sometimes I'll hear a melody or a rhythm that I would have never thought of before had I not heard that drum beat or rhythm. So when I worked with Dean, I had pretty much the whole song worked out, but when I heard his drum parts, I made those parts other than the theme more interesting.
Mhm.
Like there, you know, the theme happens many times, but there's a lot of like kind of random licks in between there. And when I heard what Dean did, it kind of made me go one level more and got inspired by his playing. So that's kind of how that song happened, if I remember correctly.
So you, if I remember correctly, you also produced that album, right? You were a producer for the
Yeah,
album
yeah,
too.
yeah.
And as a teenage guitarist, you were writing songs, writing drum parts, and producing also.
Well, by that time, I was already in my early 20s, but
Oh.
at the time, you know, I was producing it because I was the only one who knew what it was I wanted. If I could have afforded a big time producer, I would have definitely had someone else in there. And that record, I mean, I like it, but I don't think sonically it doesn't, you know, someone with more experience as a producer might have sonically made it sound better, but I did the best I could, and it was a very low budget, and yeah, it was just because only strictly because I was the only one who understood it. Back then, there was not a lot of people doing really intricate guitar and drum stuff. Even on Shrapnel Records, everybody was playing like these straight drum beats and these kind of scales and exercises things. And that's not what I wanted, so I couldn't really have someone else produce it, but I would have loved to have anyone else produce any of my records, really. But it all winds up to me being able to explain what I want to the engineers. So
I mean, it has always stood out from the Shrapnel bunch, your record. I have always loved it. I mean, I love the entire Shrapnel year actually, but I think yours really stands out because of the composition and the other things that you mentioned. Now I know.
thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot. I appreciate that
thank
a
you
lot.
for the music.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to some fan questions for you. Would you be interested in incorporating Indian folk music elements in your music in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always interested in anything that excites me with music. And a lot of that comes from going to different countries. And the more you can interact with the people in those countries, the better. Sometimes when you're on tour, you just go to the hotel, go to the show and play it and gone. But luckily, when I was in India, I got to spend some time with some really cool people. And in particularly Yogi from Pineapple Express. He was working on my show, and I didn't know he was a musician. I just thought he was on the staff because he was doing the sound and running PA and just helping out with everything. I just thought he was a really cool guy. And then the last day when we were leaving, he gave me his CD of Pineapple Express. And then I thought, oh, okay, now another guy in the staff gives me a CD, great. It happens all the time. But when I heard it, I had no idea what I was in for. It was so incredible. I didn't hear it till like a couple days after I got home. I was like, oh, here's a CD from that PA guy. I played it and my mouth was open. I'm like, I can't believe how cool this is. So like, I'm like, I hope I still have the guy's information. So I emailed him and I'm like, dude, this is the greatest CD that I've heard in a long time. You've got to explain what the hell's going on. We've got to work on something together. The guy sent me sheet music of one of his songs. And it was so incredible that I just like tried to learn it and try to get something from it. And you can even hear that influence on Tokyo Jukebox 3 on very, very slightly. I mean, there's no way. I mean, his music is very, very deep, and it comes from growing up in India with his very, very unique experiences and super talent. So if I could just take a slight bit of influence from that, that'd be great. And the first song on Tokyo Jukebox, no, it's the fourth song, called Kaze ga Fuiteru. And in the middle, I'm like, you know, if this was Yogi, he would be putting this cool little transitional part in this section. So I did like kind of like my very, very cheap version of what he does. And what I did this polyrhythm against the rhythm, and I used octaves to bring it out. And it sounds kind of like a little amateur version of Pineapple Express for like a little section. And so I basically copied his thing as best as I could, but I was just blown away. And that all comes from, you know, being open to soaking in good music from wherever you find it, really.
Awesome. So your next fan question is, do you still listen to thrash metal? And if you do, are there any new bands that you enjoy listening to?
I don't know if you call it thrash metal or not, but there's a lot of really heavy music that I listen to. I don't even, do people still use the term thrash metal?
Oh yeah, there are new bands like Power Trip, whose singer passed away recently. That's pretty popular. And there's been a revival of actually that old school sound of the 80s currently. So they're doing the whole back to the past thing where they're doing the old school sound again. So pretty
Really?
good. Yeah.
Who's
You
the
should check
biggest
out Power Trip.
who's the biggest thrash metal band now?
Today, I think Power Trip, till their lead singer died, was probably the most popular and the most, it was considered the most influential modern day thrash metal band, which still has a foot in the old school. And then there are bands like Havoc, but they're not that new. So you might find them a bit derivative, I think, because you have already done all the stuff that they're doing now, but they're pretty good. Any
Yeah,
Japanese thrash metal, heavy metal bands which you would recommend?
yeah. I mean, there's a lot. You know what? When I think of the word thrash, back at the time, you know, when I was in a thrash band, it had this sound to me, and it's kind of fast and kind of like interesting for guitar, and a lot of really fast and exciting,
Yeah.
but not really all that heavy and like severely crushingly dark and unbelievable powerful. It was kind of fast and just like running really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which is cool. But I think that what maybe turns me on more is something that's got more contrast. So it's heavier and slower sometimes, and much faster sometimes, and just more violent and more aggressive, and less mid-tempo stuff. So I would recommend, there's some Japanese bands that I think thrash fans would like and really get a good vibe from. I think I would recommend Crossfaith. I would recommend Maximum Hormone. Very heavy, but they don't really sound. If you like thrash, I think you'll definitely like Maximum Hormone. Who else? Crossfaith. 9mm Parabellum Bullet is very close to thrash because it's
great name. 9mm Parabellum.
Have you heard them?
No, I mean, I just love the name. I'm already a fan. I'm definitely going to listen
Oh,
to
that's
them.
great. Yeah, I mean, they're kind of closer to traditional thrash. They've got a lot of twin guitars, and it's kind of fast, but it's it sounds more modern and more Japanese. So I would recommend those three. And actually, I just did a video for I forgot which I think it was Rock Hard magazine, where I'm introducing like 9 or 10, 8, a bunch of Japanese heavy metal bands where they don't come to mind right now, but if it's on YouTube, and so if you're interested, go there, because there's a lot of very, very heavy bands here in Japan that are exciting. So people, even like revival thrash fans, will like it too, I'm sure.
Definitely. I just give you one recommendation. I just remembered that I had seen a video of yours in which you had said that you love girls playing guitars. So there's an all-female thrash metal band from Brazil called Nervosa.
What are they called?
Nervosa. Nervosa.
Nervosa. Okay.
Yeah. So they're all female bands. You should definitely check them out. They released an album this year, which was one of the strongest albums this year so far. You should definitely check them out.
From Brazil?
From Brazil, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I'll have to check it out.
Definitely. You should definitely check it out.
I heard something very cool from Brazil the other day. I forgot what it was, but I remember all these cool people coming from Brazil. And I just played with a guitar player, Mateus Asato. Do you know him?
No, I don't think so. Where is he from? Which band is he?
He's
Is he
from Brazil. Actually, he
Okay.
played with Bruno Mars.
Okay.
And yeah, you're a guitar player. You will love him, Matias Asato.
Mhm.
He's kind of like very popular on YouTube and
Mhm.
Instagram.
Mhm.
We did this remote thing together, and he's from Brazil, and he's just super unbelievable guitar player. I would recommend him, but it's not thrash at all. It's just very good guitar playing.
Even Megadeth's current guitar player, Kiko Loureiro, is Brazilian.
He's from Brazil too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a
yeah,
Brazilian.
he's really good.
Oh,
So
he's very good.
there's something about Brazil, man.
Yeah, Brazilian rhythms. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Let's quickly go to rapid fire round. Sushi or Korean barbecue?
Sushi.
Kitaro or Yani?
Kitaro.
Okay. British or American accent?
Good question, man. That's hard. I think for a girl, British. For a guy, American.
Okay.
Okay. Tom Brady or Joe Montana?
Joe Montana. This is old school, man.
Oh, you're not a fan of the new school. I mean, I knew you were a huge sports fan growing up. So
Yeah. Definitely. You guys did your homework. That's cool.
yeah. I myself am a big fan of the NFL. So big
Oh,
Tom
right.
Brady fan, obviously. New school.
What team do you like?
Currently, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because I'm a Tom Brady fan. So for the last 6-7 years, I was a fan of the Patriots, and now I'm a fan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Nice.
Bandwagon fan, but still.
Bandwagon.
Rust in Peace or Countdown to Extinction?
Wow. That's impossible, man. Oh,
On the spot.
no idea, man. They're both really good. I would have to say I haven't heard either of those in a long time, but they're both really good. I would probably say Countdown. Yeah. I don't know. If it were me, I would go back and I would take like half my favorite songs off Rust in Peace and half of my favorite songs off Countdown and put those all together. That's what it would be. That's what I do anyway with all of if I have a band that I like, I'll make my own compilations.
We can call that album Rust Away to Extinction.
There you go. Yeah, they're both really good.
So one final question in the rapid fire round: Fender Stratocaster or the Ibanez Gem?
Fender all the way, only because Fender's part of Jackson.
Oh, I thought you'd be more of an Ibanez guy, because I think you used to play that in the 80s, right?
Yeah. I played Ibanez in the 2000s, and they made a really nice signature model, and they're fantastic people, a wonderful company. Yeah, but I'm a Jackson guy now, so I gotta go Fender.
Fender. Okay, Marty, thank you so much for spending time with us. Thank you so much for all the
Thank you so
insight.
much.
And it was just, I mean, obviously a fanboy moment for me, and also like you have such a guru type vibe to you, and so much fun. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to use the correct Indian word, and so much fun learning from you, hearing from you, and I'm sure our viewers will have an excellent time. And you are as much a pleasure to host as we had imagined. Thank you so much for being so gracious.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the support.
Pleasure.
And I really hope to play in India again. It was such a wonderful experience, and we'll make it happen, man.